game, but looking at the series layout, what are you picking apart?
I think one of the big ones is going to be Game 2 Slayer Livefire. It's a really bit of a struggle bus for ITB in previous tournaments, so we'll have to see whether they can try and find better form than their 1-4 so far this season. King of the Hill Solitude on the other side, though, for Quadrant is not a good one for them, and ITB should be able to take them down if they find that same consistency.
All right, well, we'll have to find out very shortly. Heading into that fly-through means only one thing. Jerzy and Dan, it's time for a cast. Enjoy it.
It's time for a European Grand Finals of sorts, Dan. Quadrant up against ITB. We have a European squabble on international soil. Quadrant will desperately want to get the job done here. The pressure is on them to perform, but for ITB, they can be that underdog, but underdogs can bark if they can bite. Shields up, weapons hot, we're underway here.
These two teams have competed so many times in European online competition. It's actually a 29-28 map record between the two of them, with Quadrant taking it by 1. That's how close it's been. It's been back and forth, but for the majority, Quadrant have more titles in Europe. Quadrant have had more wins in those qualifiers to get to this point. But we'll have to see how that translates to land in international competition. This is a big one for both of these teams. I know we said maybe more so for ITB, but Quadrant still have a point to prove it.
These two teams absolutely no stranger to one another. TchiK used to play on Quadrant. Jimbo used to play with the French boys on Cartel. Glory, Snipedrone also played with the ITB boys. They've chopped and changed, they've swapped, they've gone back and forth. These two rosters are now solidified as zMightys locks in a headshot, and how big he could be if he could get some confidence in his sails.
Of course, in Empyrean, sniper rifle control is going to be massive for either team. Snipedrone often going to be the one to go for it on Quadrant, but also, you know, SLG can use a sniper rifle as well. We'll have to see whether someone from ITB can do what zMightys has just done and take out a few players with that snipe so they can gain some map control. But this is a series that we've been building up to for quite some time in Europe. Two teams that are always going toe-to-toe. ITB have ensured that Quadrant have been on their toes, as it were. If Quadrant didn't have this competition from ITB in Europe, then Quadrant may not be where they are today.
Snipedrone lines up TchiK, gets taken down by the former Quadrant man. The Frenchman now has a sniper rifle, lines up his former teammate in SLG. I feel like we can say that almost every single time we jump onto a POV of a player. WuTum, the mouse and keyboard god, got the flag in his hand and he's trying to push it forward. He's stopped dead in his tracks in the mauler because he recognizes that Glory, the Irishman, has the sniper rifle and he's trying to shut him down and stop this push. Jimbo's down to no shields. Glory takes care of business. A killing spree for him, and WuTum's not long for the world. He's also cleared out.
Pretty much tied on slays at the moment. Neither team able to really grasp this game and get control. Both the flag pools have been at a whim. Hope that maybe the slays would follow. It hasn't been get all four dead, get a spawn trap, and then pull the flag. It's instead been, we've got a couple of kills. Let's see if we can move it. Let's see if the kills will follow. They have not. Now, rockets are going to be coming up. Overshield going to be popping at the same time. So this is a good chance for Snipedrone to try and elevate his position a little bit and help out the rest of the team.
Elevate he does, opts to go for a little bit of a backstab as well. zMightys not aware of the position of Snipedrone. Rockets have been scooped up, Overshield was up as well, so we'll have to see which way that has gone. But right now, Glory and SLG have picked up a couple of kills. Jimbo could be in trouble. He's got the repulsor, and Snipedrone's too aware to fire this one his way. Continues to bait and switch, trying to get those shields down, trying to force Jim into a position maybe he doesn't want to be in. Jimbo forces himself back up. WuTum's there. That rocket will get sent back towards Snipedrone, but luckily for him, it doesn't take his life.
That is great trigger discipline from Snipedrone initially, and he is rewarded in the end with a double kill from it as well. So many players would have just fired that rocket, been unaware of the chance it gets reflected back towards you. But it still hasn't really allowed any sort of map control off the back of it. Because the overshield was contested and neither team was able to utilize it to its full extent, there's still a lack of map control on both sides. So instead, it's a little bit of a standoff. Snipers are now back up, and it's a chance again for zMightys to show what he can do with it.
Sica slides down the training, taking quite a lot of damage. zMightys cleans up the pieces there. SLG's forced away. Sniper rifle from zMightys. Did he just catch the shins of Snipedrone? Looks as though he might have. He backs away. And zMightys happy to patrol top tower. Dutchman locks in a body onto Snipedrone and dispatches the Englishman. And this is the opportunity then to push forward. Glory's continuing to apply pressure. He knows desperately he wants that sniper rifle. Attracted to it like a magpie as zMightys gets one more.
And remember, winner of this guarantees themselves top 8, and on their side of the bracket is not FaZe Clan, by the way, in elimination. FaZe went to the top side of the bracket. That is great news for both of these squads. But if we are to see either of these European teams get into that top 4, it's going to have to be beating the likes of an SSG or an Optic. when they get to that stage of the bracket. But of course, right now the focus is getting through your European counterpart. But really, not much to split the difference. Again, it's still 29 to 28 in terms of kills. Finally, we see an all 4 dead. It's in favor of ITB, but there's only one player remaining in WuTum, so he's not going to be able to do that much from this position, except gain some map control, get some positioning, and maybe be a nuisance here.
There's one player alive, but it's a tricky customer. Not much is for sure. Snipedrone hiding in the wall. She gets the kill. Jimbo, he's there to exchange some shots as well. Snipedrone gets another one. And all those kills zMightys was getting in his tower and on his side of the base. He got a killing spree, but he very rarely left a few meters of that tower. He wasn't able to push forward. And it looks as though Quadrant are trying to be the aggressor here, and ITB are on the receiving end playing defense.
Overshield's about to pop. SLG tried to get close to it, but WuTum has been able to slam it into his chest. But look at the teamwork coming out of Glory and SLG just to delete as much of that OS as possible. But WuTum, recognizing there was a little bit too much pressure, does back off, but will eventually be shut down here.
Glory in towards Sword, chick down to no shields. Beautiful nade, predicting him. Jimbo's in the training providing cover fire. It's baiting, it's switching, it's exchanging damage, it's taking it and receiving it. Outputting it, inputting it, all the stuff that you'd like to see from Halo players. Chick's down to no shields, Glory takes care of business there. We're almost over 6 minutes into this game, Dan, and nobody's really gotten a flag over the halfway point.
Yeah, and I think I like what you pointed out about, the sniper rifle being a little bit more defensive on the side of ITB and Quadrant trying to push that narrative, but now Mighty maybe trying to flip the script and trying to distract a little bit with this flag pool. But if ITB are going to win this game, there does need to be a little bit more pressure in certain areas, maybe a more aggressive position with the sniper rifle. But the downside of doing that, you risk giving up the sniper, and if you allow the opposition to have 2 snipers and to get into Sword, to get down to long haul, you can be absolutely demolished in an instant. But the new snipers have just popped, and Glory's having a look, see if he can find it.
Scooped it up. Here's some footsteps around him. He's not comfortable just yet. He's got the repulsor, does TchiK. He's now got a sniper rifle to play with as well. He's behind enemy lines. Sica's going to spot him out. Mighty's has got that sniper rifle. For a moment, ITB did have the 2 sniper rifles in their hands. It's like a game of chess. They're trying to maneuver pieces into the right place, but unable to get the check nor the checkmate.
One thing we've not even mentioned is Quadrant being here. The fact that they just lost that series against Shopify Rebellion 3-0. How much is that going to affect their mental game? ITB just coming off the back of getting a victory in pools and qualifying for the elimination bracket. They're going to be a little bit more positive and maybe look to try and take advantage of a Quadrant who are on the back foot. Now, 4 were temporarily dead, and ITB starting to gain some control of this map.
Glory's alone inside of the base, trying to defend the flag as best as he can, but the damage he's able to put down wasn't enough. Mighty's got a sniper rifle, he's got a bulldog as well. Anybody that comes close is going to get right pickings here. Snipedrone will push forward into the flag, gets a double kill. The bulldog didn't have the damage required to clear out 1. 4 dead now for ITB, so that push not amounting to much.
It was a great hold by Quadrant, and when you've got players like Snipedrone, who's one of the best anchors in Europe, if not one of the best to do it internationally as well, it's so difficult to try and get into some of those positions because Snipedrone always seems to find a way to have eyes on you, to have tabs on you, and put those bullets in to deal as much damage as possible so the rest of the team can clean it up. But we are still seeing some aggression from ITB. They're trying to push forward, get control of green so that they can get a couple of kills and try and force them back into that snipe spawn. The Rockets are going to play a big part here.
SLG fires 1 and it connects. Perhaps punching a hole in the ITB defense. TchiK's in an unorthodox position again, and SLG just didn't clear his angles. How many times are you going to allow that to happen? You've got to clear the angles. You know they're going to be playing in sneaky positions. These 2 teams are the best of frenemies at times. They've played each other 50-odd times now, Dan. Every single time they got to a grand finals, the grand finals in Europe would be reset. They'd play again, the opposite team would win. They were trading left, right, and center, like you said with that stat. They're trading 29 to 28 in map counts. These 2 teams can win this series.
From those 57 maps, interestingly, they've only played CTF Empyrean twice against one another, and it's 1-1. And I think we're seeing the evidence of that with just no team really being able to break through and get a flag even further than halfway right now. It's going to take a moment of brilliance or a big mistake from one of these sides if we're going to see a flag actually get captured right now. Otherwise, we're already leaning towards a potential overtime with 3 minutes left on the clock here.
Sniper rifle about to pop. TchiK's down there, he wants to get his hands on. You can see him patiently waiting for the pop out of the oven. Here it is. WuTum's back tower. As he threatened to go towards cuts. TchiK has got to start finding some faces with this. We know he's capable, but he's cut down. 2 go down, make it 3 then for ITB. Snipedrone's in the base. This is the most likely we've seen a flag capture on the move. Making himself a very difficult kill was zMightys over towards the Mauler. And has he bought his team just enough time?
He did stall very successfully there, and it's allowed GGz to get with a sniper rifle, and with the assist, Jimbo takes down Glory. So yeah, the flag was moving, but for how long? It looks like they have just been able to stop this one temporarily, but the flag is still out. There is still the chance for Quadrant if they can take down GGz. He's the biggest threat, but at the moment, he's still up in sword.
Snipedrone gets bodied. SLG gets a kill on zMightys.
Flag returned.
Flag will get sent back, and TchiK will find another, but again, it's sniping from a defensive stance point of view. Now is the opportunity to push forward and apply some pressure of your own. Start to dictate the base here. You've done so well. Rockets are going to be handed over, and now the opportunity comes for ITB, and TchiK's on the move.
We said we needed something special from an individual, from someone to step up. Glory not only has the overshield, but also repulses that rocket straight back to TchiK's face. Straight back. Now we are going to see Quadrant just answering to the aggression from ITB. It seems as soon as ITB gain any sort of map control here, Quadrant just have that one player to be a nuisance, and it's the same on the flip side here, Shows.
Yep, every single time a player on the other team has some sort of insurance policy, whether it be a sniper rifle, a rocket launcher, a repulsor to throw away any rockets and any advantage a team might have. These two have cancelled each other out for near 13 minutes now. As we head towards this final minute, it could well come down to one more play, Dan.
It's 70-69 in Slays as well. It's so close. Quadrant have one extra, but it hasn't really got them anything so far. It's been 11 minutes of just back and forth nothingness for the most part, and that's just really showing how close both of these squads are when it comes to CTF Imperium. Of course, I think other maps might be more one-sided, but this one, you cannot split the difference. It's an attempted push from Quadrant, but Mighty's there to shut it down immediately, along with some help from the rest of the team. 40 seconds for someone to try and make a play, otherwise we head into overtime.
ITB playing Stoke football for a while, it would seem, parking the bus, hoping for the best, maybe looking for a flag capture off a few set pieces, it would seem. Jimbo, though, in the green box. He starts to throw an aid forward. A couple of members of Quadrant stuck in the Mauler. Does Jim have the information he needs? 3 go down. Here's the moment. Can ITB push this one forward? zMightys is going to try and provide cover fire. Jimbo's on the move, and he's already got it down long haul.
Sica does get a kill onto WuTum, though, and now Sica can maybe move round. But Jim, this is experience. This is what you asked the question. Is Jimbo good enough? Can he get the slays? It doesn't matter if he can get the flag in. And ITB take the lead with only mere seconds left. And Quadrant cannot touch the flag. It's 1-0 to ITB in what is going to be a very exciting European series.
Well. Wes spoke about ITB being the underdog. And they've bitten first. 1 to the good now. And all of a sudden, maybe moods start to shift. ITB know they're in with more than a chance now.
Just the decision making from Jimbo there to not even consider looking for a kill. He saw the clock. He saw the kill feed, he saw there was 2 players down, and he says, you know what, I trust my teammates, I'm just dropping it on this flag and I'm gonna pull it and we'll see what happens. It's a free pull of sorts because of the time that was left. Very unlikely a counter cap is gonna happen from that point. So Jim said, look, get me in, everyone just with some cover fire, and the cover fire did arrive. So it may not have been an incredible slaying moment that we saw to win that game, but it was teamwork on board, and it was just good, objective decision-making there from Jimbo.
And how important is it for Jimbo? We've seen in the past many different iterations of rosters he is being on, whether it be Navi, ITB now. The decision-making that he was able to make there, he can rely on his teammates to make the plays, to do the right things when he has that flag going down long haul, that he does not even have to anticipate a player being green box or on training. He knows his teammate got it, he's locked in.
He trusts them, he listened to the communication, and he just kept on moving whilst zMightys got 25 kills. TchiK got 25 kills. They were the 2 standouts on the side of ITB. It was a slightly slower game for WuTum. 13 kills, 23 deaths. It's a -10, but it doesn't matter if your team finds the victory. WuTum got the kills when he needed to, and the rest of the team were able to find success around him. That one, though, is going to hurt Quadrant. I did say it is a map that has been hard to split the difference between these two, but that is a 1-up now for ITB, and Quadrant will have to respond.
I think it's important that you even say that with WuTum stats. The only stat that really matters at the end of the day is the one at the top of your screen. It was 1-0 in the series. Incredible performance by both teams, but for large parts, ITB were on the back foot. and they managed to wrestle back control in that map and make that final push at the end. They had a little bit of stamina. They played on the ropes, almost rope-a-dope style. They get the win. Now on the horizon, Dan, Slayer Livefire, what have you got for me?
This is the one I was talking to Lottie about before it started. A 1-4 map record for ITB so far this season. It is one of their weaker Slayers, that's for sure. On the other side for Quadrant, they are 2-3 when it comes to Slayer Livefire. But, of course, that is going to be against North American competition for the most part, because we haven't seen these two compete against each other at LAN, and that will change everything. Both of these teams know each other so well and would have scrimmed against each other, played online tournaments against each other. All of those stats against North American teams kind of get blown away a little bit here.
Taking a look at the stats on your screen as well, their map records so far this season, 8-11 versus 8-9, 10th and 9th respectively, a 0.3 and a 0.4. And the reason why they might have a couple of extra losses is because they've gone a little bit further down.
I will say though, I mean, Quadrant being 10th and ITB being 9th, you consider the placements for these teams, where Quadrant have been around top 6 more often, ITB around that top 8. I guess it's more impressive of a Slayer record for ITB, and perhaps is one of the reasons why Quadrant haven't been progressed that little bit further.
Taking a look at the head-to-heads then, the top Slayers teams, Glory up against WuTum, might have been teammates for a short while, but not for very long indeed. 1.29 for WuTum, the man at the mouse and keyboard, typing away. Quadrant's Glory with a 1.10. Those two players could be the difference makers for the teams.
And I really feel like Livefire is going to benefit WuTum a little bit more as a mouse and keyboard player as well. Being on Empyrean, very lane-based at times, controller players can really annoy you if you are a mouse and keyboard trying to match them down long haul, for example. But WuTum can forget about that first game and start to look towards making a big impact for ITB in map number 2. Because if we were to see ITB take a 2-0 lead, just think about what that does to the mentality of Quadrant. This series has been spoken about for quite some time of when would it happen on LAN and who would actually be able to take the cake, because it's all well and good winning online over and over against someone, but we've always known in Halo it is all about that LAN performance.
Questions now being answered at this Quadrant roster. Do they have the answers? Stats do slightly tip in their favor on this map and mode game type, but will we see that pain to fruition? Because sometimes you can just throw the form book out the window, Dan.
You can when it's two teams who know each other like the back of their own hand, let alone pages from a book. It's a 3-0 lead now for ITB right off the rip. And with the camo about to spawn, it's a perfect time to get all 4 dead. 4-0 now in favor of ITB. They'll get the camouflage, and this is the start that they would have hoped for, especially off the back of getting that first victory.
What way will they opt to play this? What's the pacing like? TchiK with the camouflage. Has information, there's 2 players on sandbags. Happy to back down then. You can see Sica, 2 players being sent in opposite directions, and TchiK sort of sent them on a wild goose chase, gets 1. The other player on scoreboard's also a little bit weaker now. Snipedrone's gonna hunt them down. Snipedrone's gonna get himself a double kill, and now within 1.
And I mean, I hate to bring it up, but TchiK on Livefire, we all know what happened that once upon a time, and there's always that chance of a magic moment from him as well. But someone who can also provide magic moments is Snipedrone. He is a player who certainly can be the difference maker, but you heard Clutch. Glory has been, in his opinion, the best player in Europe since his addition to this Quadrant roster, and the lack of legend in Europe as well. Maybe we've got to see something from him to prove that.
Finds the body onto 1. You can see ITB wanted to try and bait and switch. TchiK spins around and does a lot of damage. Glory will fall down. We spoke about what's the communication like, what's the mood in the camps like. And for ITB, that's going to be very important in this Slayer. Let's have a listen in with them.
He's bottom mid. He went left side. Yeah, handshake out. I'm back.
Concrete on me. Concrete, guys.
Okay, I'm going A platform. I'm going A platform.
I'm
On the box weak, I told you.
No one top mid.
And back me, Sica weak. I have to go back.
A plat. See anything A plat?
Okay, listen. 2 back me. Can you get this here?
Can you get 1? One's your cover.
Handshake this
One
shit.
was A plat. No, one's top mid now.
2 back me.
He went back to A plat. One's training with TP, one's top mid.
Camo. One less.
Two less. One's pillars.
Can we hit A plat for camo here?
Yeah, one's on me dummies. He scored someone.
One shot. Yo, polish my shot. There's 2 of them. I'm going top mid right now.
I don't know. But there's one small on my team. I don't know. Show me from A.
Hold yourself, Seb.
Show me from A. I don't know.
Bottom mid.
Watch A plat. I'm gonna go too bad. You take flash shots.
Yeah, I'll tell him.
He went key.
Okay.
One on camera now. Look at drone with camera. He's key now.
Let's be on it.
Nice.
Stop in, maybe?
Cuts.
Go look Nest.
He's going scoreboard. One on scoreboard.
Look at Nest, look at Nest.
Sniping 15.
Pick top. Pick top, Glory, one shot.
One shot. There.
One.
Sniper.
Sniper, we play for sniper.
Yo, Jim, I'm with you.
I can repulse up. I'll shoot bomb in advance.
Two one shot.
Nothing dropped yet.
I'm with concrete. Concrete one shot. He's
Now on snipe now.
he went back B.
Boys, we have to handshake this.
Oh my god, he got in. Stop. It's fine. Okay, one way.
A-plant now. Two left sniping SLG. Watch out scoreboard, guys. And small hit ones. Scoreboard still there, going A.
Go. Two names.
That's only.
Sniper plat. Careful, sniper plat.
I'm laying the back.
One shot, two. One shot, mud. 10 minutes well. Guys,
One
one shot.
shot.
Okay.
I don't see key.
One of them.
Last guy drone.
Snipe jump.
Kill me, B side.
I'm already B.
He's elbow.
They're all C. Two come back.
Okay. They might get this side.
Okay, it's fine.
Go shot close.
I got it.
Okay, nice.
Look at Tom AP.
I've sniped.
That means one shot.
Keep back up, 50.
That means dead.
Yeah, me key. Go on. Kill me. He won't kill me. Watch the key and get me down.
Where'd it go? Left?
I don't know.
He's gonna jump up. Right above you.
I
I spawned
Maybe a player.
Six kills.
I'm looking at it, but.
I'm good.
One pick off. Let's nest now. Let's not Glory.
Okay.
One shot. Hard shot nest.
He's gonna go mid.
I have a one
Back B.
back.
One back B.
Yeah,
I'm going to the door if you want to push it.
yeah, I can trust the big lane.
Get up here, one now.
Yeah, no, I'm getting nest lane. Three, all four there. My big lane. I'm going white wall. I'm not getting nest police. I'm back.
One shot. It does nice.
Two. Let's do.
I'm flying me. I'll give it the back, you go. I did one TP back.
I spawned picture.
Let's not trap ourselves.
Oh, he's nasty.
Okay, I'm going at pad.
TP's still down.
Two already on my
I'm trying to help you, Seb. I'm with you.
One shot. Nice. Throw in my TP.
Communication is fast. It's on the line of being a little bit frantic. One thing we do know is Quadrant have a 7-kill lead, make it 8. I expect the communication to be a little bit different, a little bit more controlled from them. But let's be a fly on the wall and have a little listen.
I'm going to go. Jimbo
Weak dice, 2 dice.
Camo's up now.
2 dice, you can go away with camo.
I have camo. Nice. Leave the middle.
I spawned on camo, the heavy tower.
Yeah, they're going to push something out. Live. Come down.
Watch training.
Yeah, okay.
Training.
Nice. We're going for it.
Yeah, top tower.
Elbow right now.
Top tower.
Top tower and elbow.
Elbow each.
Top tower.
Watch out, elbow. And shoot me from it. Watch out,
Yeah,
elbow.
I'm trying to kill B, guys.
I'm still top
One.
tower.
Another one. And I died from here.
Nice.
B.
Watch Tine.
There was a guy elbow.
Yeah, elbow. On, combo. Watch out on Mike.
Here.
On me.
Yeah, live. How much long camo?
Go on noise.
Pas weak, ça.
Check it on noise. Cuts in on noise. We're going to cover.
I'm gonna die.
Cross your eyes.
Weak OS, weak door. Il y a recluse top vent maybe. Yeah, top vent now.
Let's put check.
Yeah, I'm on 15. Sniper on 15.
Cross your eyes.
Nice.
Midday weak.
Aggressive.
Two short name. One shot dip.
I thought absolute all wood on the pistol. Absolute.
Communication a little bit more frantic than I perhaps anticipated. And we heard Sica getting a little bit emotional after Snipedrone got a kill. He shouted dog shit. I don't know what that means in French, Dan. We'll have to maybe Google Translate a little bit later on, but what we can see is Quadrant are only 4 kills away from a win, make it 3.
Yeah, this one has been pretty one-sided. I mean, when we were in the ITB listening, there was a lot of inflection in Wonderboy's voice about sniper, let's do this. We need to be holding hands. Why are we pushing alone? And it has been a struggle for them, and it is about to be 1-1 all tied up unless we see something historic here. But with Quadrant on 49, Glory with a sniper rifle, this one should be done.
1 more kill required to completely equalize the series score, and the good work that ITB had done in that Empyrean CTF to be completely wiped clean and us to be level once more at 1-1. It's going to be a miracle here to come back in this one. Just needed a trade and they will get it. WuTum's going to be the man to fall, but many had fallen before him. A dominant display in game number 2, and you can tell, we spoke about Wonderboy's communication, sniper, but one thing he did say was stand still, and they did not do it.
No, they were all moving. They were all trying to kind of find someone to take the fight, and maybe it was just off the back of, you know, a really exciting game 1 where you get that flag in the final moments and you're all feeling yourself, you all want to take that fight, you feel like you can take on the world. And in the early stages, I mean, they went 4 up, then it was looking good, but then Quadrant showed their class. We have to remember, this Quadrant roster, at least half of it, has been top 3. they have been up there with the big boys here on the international scene, and they were top 6 at the previous event as well. ITB, we've seen them at top 6 as well, but not quite reaching the dizzy heights as some of these Quadrant players. There is still a lot of Halo to be played in this series, but certainly Quadrant have shown that this is not going to be a situation where they allow ITB to run over them after a very tightly contested game 1.
Now, I want to pose a question to you because you've played competitively in Halo, you've finished top 3 in Europe quite consistently, and you get that game 1 win in the final moments and you're riding high, but can you talk about the crash when you lose a game 2 like that? Because you're up so high and then your mood sinks straight away. Is that something you can bounce back from pretty easily?
I think that's where you need a Wonder Boy. You need a coach. You need someone to be stepping in and saying, it's absolutely fine. It's one of your worst game types. Like, remind them of that. We are expected to lose this one. Look at the stats, and I hope he's got them ready for him. You haven't won this game type pretty much in the last 2 tournaments, let alone here against your European counterparts. And I think once you have that reminder, once you look at that expectation, you have to look at the series layout as a whole. You cannot 3-0 every single team. You cannot be perfect on every single map and mode. You're going to have your good maps, you're going to have your bad maps. We just saw the best team in the world, FaZe, lose 3-0 on the main stage. Everyone is going to lose games here or there. As long as you can bounce back, stay strong, and believe in yourself in the other maps, you're going to be fine.
That's the question as well, because we know these teams look at the series layouts, they are heavily scrutinized by them. They look at them, they say, listen, okay, we're going to be playing against Quadrant, here's the game types, and you know Wonder Boy's like, I like 1, I like 4, not a big fan of 2. You know that's going on, so when you drop the second map like that, it doesn't hurt as much as maybe if you fancy the game 1 and lose that one instead.
You say we've got King of the Hill Solitude coming up as map number 3. That is one of our better maps and modes, boys, and from research, we know it is one of Quadrant's worst as well. Now, of course, they would have practiced against one another, so there's always that element of being bad at a game type against North American teams, but it could be a game type you are good against ITB, for example, if you are Quadrant. So that's something you have to be aware of and not be too complacent, but certainly this is a better map and mode for ITB.
King of the Hill is definitely going to be a massive game, and I think I want to touch upon TchiK's story, right? He had this historic run last year, making it to a top 3 finish. He finds himself subject to no longer required in the team. He gets dispatched, and many people believe that his seat shouldn't have been the one that he was eliminated from. It should have been a different player entirely, and he has to now bounce back and almost forge a new path for himself. No longer on that French roster. And having a look at the King of the Hill record, 4-5 for Quadrant, 6-2 for ITB. So you're speaking about how this one's good for ITB, and I can see why.
Yeah, they are far better at King of the Hill when it comes to playing against some of these North American rosters, and on Solitude in particular. Quadrant yet to find a win so far this season. And these are 2 of the main players that have been performing well when you get into game, but for entirely different reasons. I mean, the damage is there for both of them, but the hill time has certainly been more prominent for Snipedrone. TchiK is not the guy who's going to be in that hill. That's when you're looking at more like a Jimbo, for example, to be getting down and dirty with everyone within the hill.
And for Snipedrone, I have to say, in terms of playstyle, Dan, he's not the player I expected to be the one that was in the hill most of the time. Now, it's a good strategy because, of course, he does have that anchor playstyle, so if he's going to sit in the hill and do damage, what better place to have him?
He can be quite static, Snipedrone. It was one of his criticisms when he was playing with the Ascend roster back in the day. They were all flying at everyone, and Snipedrone was still in the locker room waiting for things to happen. But from that locker room, he can still hit shots.
He has a good scope.
And that's why Snipedrone is still so good. And also, when other teams try and isolate Snipedrone, he can still fight his way out of a 1 versus 2. As soon as there's a 1 versus 3, 1 versus 4, that's when it starts to get a little bit sticky for Snipedrone. So if you also just put him in a hill where he can be static, where he can hit shots, he does become a bit of a turret. You place him down, he hits your shots, and you just need to clean them up.
And the story for these 2 teams, it's long been written. The ink is dry on some of the history. HCS Valencia, it was Sica's team who came out on top. Jim had to take the L. Then we had EU, we had Europa Halo and Blackpool. And again, Jimbo lost the series. You know damn well those boys want to win here.
Yeah, they would love to be able... I mean, if you want to see a pop-off on the main stage, it's more likely to come from an ITB victory here. I still think Quadrant, knowing the players, are going to celebrate. I mean, a Sica pop-off is something you see very often on the main stage as well. But the expectation is Quadrant to be winning this. The players will say, we expect to be winning this series. We have won this series before so many times. For ITB, even though they believe they can win this series, there wouldn't necessarily be the expectation there. They are the underdogs coming into this one, and they will erupt if they're able to win.
And that's something that we don't talk about very often. Is obviously, we have teams that are always the underdog and the favourites, but sometimes the favourites can be guilty of just a little bit of arrogance, looking beyond some teams. You know that's not happening here, but some teams definitely can fall victim to it.
Yeah, there's no chance Quadrant underestimate ITB because they know each other, because they know ITB have toppled them in online tournaments as well. They will be more than prepared for this scenario to potentially happen, and will certainly be giving it their all. There's not even any sort of chance of complacency from this Quadrant roster, and that's why we're going to get in a very entertaining series. We've already got 1-1 tied here, going into the King of Hill Solitude. If we were to see ITB take that, suddenly Streets Ball becomes one of the most important maps and modes for ITB so far this season.
1-1 the series score as we load into Game 3. King of the Hill Solitude. The stats slightly tipped towards ITB. Can Quadrant flip the script and turn one of ITB's favourite map and mode combinations in their favour? And can that really hurt their confidence?
That's when it hurts. You ask me, when does it hurt? When you take a loss after a victory. If you lose back-to-back and it's one of your best game types, that's when the seed of doubt gets planted into your mind. You start to think, maybe we can't go all the way here. Maybe Quadrant are just one step too far. But ITB will not want that to happen. They're definitely coming strong here.
Well, Quadrant are definitely going to plant the seed. But what's the soil going to be like in this game type? We're about to find out. Bottom middle is the first point of contention for these teams. It can be a bit of a mosh pit at times, throwing bodies everywhere. Bodies can't hit the floor, Dan.
It's great being on WuTum's point of view, just in general. I mean, the highest placing mouse and keyboard player ever in Halo history. And I'm sure he'd love to try and reach those dizzy heights yet again. And he certainly has the opportunity to put his best foot forward here, has the shock rifle. If you're a sniper and you're a mouse and keyboard player, you're definitely going to have that opportunity to make a big ruckus here.
Exclamation point sense, you might put in the chat, hoping to figure out what WuTum's got. All I know is he's got WASD, and he's putting it to work here, dragging that mouse left, right, and center, putting down damage. The shock rifle player will eventually fall. The Hill hasn't really made any progress. It's not favoring any one of these teams right now, but it's ITB who have feet in the Hill, and they're starting to score. Jimbo will get dispatched, as will zMightys, and now the opportunity for Quadrant, while they have 4 players on the map, 4 guns trained to hit some targets, that they should start to see some time progressing.
That's not the first time so far this series we've seen Sica, the last remaining player, still able to get a kill. If you can rely on anyone to go clutch, Sica is definitely one of those players who can do so for you. Not only does he get the kill, he's able to work with the rest of the team, and now is getting Hill time off the back of it. I cannot stress enough how big it was that he stayed alive and won that 1v1.
Sica slides bottom middle. WuTum hits the respawn screen along with zMightys, who has now just rejoined the fray. Sica will get taken care of. It's ITB who need to claw back a little bit more positioning on the map here. They keep losing players all the meanwhile. zMightys over towards the loop. Snipedrone hits the sky, and Snipedrone descends on an unwanting, unknowing zMightys. Jimbo still clawing tooth and nail, trying to get in the Hill, but he just doesn't have the numbers where he needs them.
Teamwork definitely better at the moment for Quadrant, outslaying ITB by 7 in the first Hill. Likely to go in their favor, especially with a camouflage to work with as well. Glory can play this one in several avenues, but it seems like it's just about securing that time, and I think ITB just let that one go and instead started to take a little bit more map presence and started to think about this next Hill.
Yeah, I think ITB definitely letting that one go, using it as an opportunity to prioritize positioning and rotating to the new Hill. They've done that. The issue is the Hill has moved, Quadrant have moved with it, and now they're taking down ITB members once more. Jimbo's caught unawares, but Jimbo wins the one, and that's a big one.
It's always well and good leaving a Hill and starting to set up for next, but when it's a camouflage that's in the Hill, that usually means that the rest of the team is probably making waves to get to the next one as well, because a camouflage can usually win an entire Hill on their own in those final moments, or at least be sneaky enough to disrupt the opposition from trying to take it away from you. Now, Quadrant have already almost got halfway towards this second Hill, and ITB struggling to stay in this one in terms of slays, 25-15 now in favor of Quadrant. And that is going to be difficult to try and wrestle back control when you are starting to get heavily outslayed.
The pace is very much going one way. It's Quadrant being the aggressor, and ITB having to deal with it.
This is better.
Got a couple of kills in their favor, and now they can start to look towards the Hill. Glory's trying to get out of dodge with the shock rifle, because we know how important that weapon can be. Unfortunately for him, TchiK has eliminated him from the equation. Jimbo's in Hill, and they're just about taking the lead in terms of progress on this one. It's going to be Quadrant spawning down low towards Hotel in blue. That's where the rotation's going to come. Jim has to look towards top yellow because that's where he's receiving some pressure. Sica's got the kill. The initial damage that was done for the player sitting top yellow. Setup broken wide open. Quadrant are moving back into the hill again.
Jim just needed some help there. His support was kind of sat underneath gold ledge, and sitting underneath gold ledge, you just allow your hill player to get absolutely decimated from above. You need to be trying to take a little bit more presence on the map so you can help them. But Quadrant have been able to now hold down this hill, and looks like they're going to lock down a second and will do so. So even though ITB had a moment of promise there where they were able to get 3 down on the side of Quadrant, couldn't capitalize. They were just too far behind as Glory picks up a double and is showing why he's one of the best players right now.
Glory absolutely pestering ITB with that camouflage, putting down damage, getting kills. Exactly what you need to see from a camouflage player. Playing it so patiently as well. Looked to jump up the garbage truck, seeing 2 players back down, and chose his timing a lot better the second time around. WuTum's gotten the kill on the Snipedrone, and this hill can be very difficult to break if ITB can play this one perfectly.
The real question is, who do you put in the hill? We saw the stats, and we saw that, you know, TchiK sometimes can be there, but Jimbo is usually the preference to be in the hill for this roster, as now zMightys will catch Sica off guard there. Sica just not checking his corners. Sometimes you can be guilty of that when you're trying to play fast, when you're trying to keep up with the rest of the team. This is a good amount of time though for ITB, and I like this. They are not just diving into the hill to try and get points. They are seeking out these remaining Quadrant players to try and create staggered spawns here, which will ensure the hill goes in their favor.
Yeah, they're almost killing in waves, right? They're getting kills, getting in the hill. When the team spawns back up again, step out, prioritize positioning, get your kills, get back in the hill. Happy to take 10 seconds at a time. And it's paying dividends for them here. Jimbo's in a 1v1. Jimbo loses it, all 4 dead. Now this is where I started to question how their setup breaking skills and their setup breaking capabilities, how they match up.
It was like a Quadrant horde mode where they just keep coming, and Snipedrone just kept getting bigger, sadly for them, and now he will retain the hill and he will hold it. And this is what we were mentioning earlier. Snipedrone, even though he is the highest slayer on the team right now, as he does get the trade, he is often the player that will find himself in the hill as well. So camouflage going in favor of ITB this time, not allowing Glory to get it. And this is important, I feel, because zMightys can now get into a position where even if Quadrant are controlling the hill, he could disrupt it, but it looks like kills are going in their way, and ITB should be able to put their first on the board and will do so.
There's wave after wave of ITB pressure, and the hill slowly drifted away. 2-1 now the score, and that's exactly what ITB need.
2 minutes left on the clock, so still plenty of time. But this is one of those hills where grenades are going to be very important. If you're off spawn, you need to be thinking about how you're going to utilize those grenades. Where do you need to back them off? Is there damage that can be found, or is it going to be a kill that you get with them to help the rest of your team push? But the early hill time is going in favor of Quadrant, and for the most part, ITB have struggled when Quadrant have got a lot of the hill time in the early stages.
2 down for ITB, 2 down for Quadrant. 2v2 on the map for now. And the push is going to come up the driveway. A little bit of pressure being applied over towards Loop as well. Jimbo's down a couple of shots. The Snipedrone will have to fall and wait and watch his teammates do damage. Glory applying pressure in the hill, but Jimbo's trying to make him a little bit weak for his teammates to push forward. Jimbo also receives a bit of damage in the process. Now he sits top yellow, and his teammate WuTum has fallen. TchiK goes down. Jim's the last one and the furthest one forward for his team as one rotates towards blue. zMightys gets there quick, fast, with a quickness, with a swiftness, gets his kill on the SLG.
WuTum has fallen. Is that like Olympus has fallen? It's just a film entirely around WuTum getting connected by
I'd watch it.
I'd definitely watch it. Just massive keyboards everywhere. But 1 minute and 10 left on the clock. Suddenly that timer does start to come into the equation here. If Quadrant are able to get this 3rd hill for themselves and go 3-1 up, the 4th hill should I say, it's unlikely ITB are going to have time to get back into this one. So ITB cannot afford to allow Quadrant to get this 4th hill.
3 go down, 4 go down.
Uh-oh.
That's burning time, it's burning progress in the hill, but they're still looking to play this hill, our Quadrant. They recognize that they cannot afford to play Slayer just yet, because when that clock stops, that could be real concern. And there's still enough time for them not only to win this hill, but send us to overtime and win the game. And the Quadrant seconds, moments away from securing their 3rd hill. Jimbo and co soaring up driveway. Enough damage done by Glory. Snipedrone with a killing spree. Sica tiptoes into the hill. 3-1 now the score.
3-1, and that might just be a little bit too much for ITB to get back into this game. 45 seconds, the clock temporarily stops as they now set foot in this hill. It has to be flawless from them. They cannot afford to allow Quadrant to crack them even once, because it would be so detrimental with the time they would lose on respawn. Now here comes the push from Quadrant.
Is the lead insurmountable? 2 go down for ITB. That's important. Mighty and Jimbo are down. WuTum's in the hill though, but he's all alone, isolated there. Sica's over towards blue. TchiK set up and positioned towards tram loop. That's where the spawns are coming. Sica's heading them off at the pass. Recognize that. He's been bait, he's been switched, and they've got themselves a kill. WuTum still stands in the hill. The clock remains at 42. There's still time here.
Well, I said they needed a flawless hill, and they're close to having a perfect one here. Sica, last remaining player, and he's not going to be able to stop them. 3 seconds only went by from hill 4 to hill 5, and suddenly ITB still do have an opportunity here. We're back to bottom middle, and it's ITB in the hill. It's 2 players from Quadrant that have gone down, and WuTum, he's out for blood, and the grenades do the damage, and suddenly Quadrant, they are struggling here. They cannot find their footing.
This hill is far more difficult to lock down. Bottom middle, Jimbo has got to be aware of the time at hand here. Snipedrone heading towards dip. He drops down at the bottom middle and steps away. You know the play call has been made. Quadrant are going to play Slayer here, but ITB have got to match the aggression and stand in the hill at the same time.
Suddenly ITB are getting closer in the slaying department as well, reducing it to just a 7-kill difference. At one point it was upwards of 10, if not 12, but now there's only 22 seconds left. ITB have lost 3. ZMightys though gets a kill that was so much needed here at this point, but now you have to go. Now you have to send someone into this hill, otherwise it's game.
There's been a camouflage pop as well. It's in Glory's hands. The game could well and truly be in Glory's hands. He's got to play this one pixel perfect. TchiK's on Soda. He's got 2 players positioned over towards the hill. ZMightys and Jimbo are neck and neck. They're hand in hand here, trying to stop the onslaught. Glory's managed to get behind enemy lines. Glory gets taken down. 5 seconds remain in this game, and Quadrant are still contesting it. ITB do not have feet inside the hill until this moment. It's down to TchiK. TchiK falls. 2 go down, but there's still a foot in. Jimbo with a 1v1 and triple kill for Snipedrone. Quadrant 2-1 to the good.
A little bit too close for comfort, but when the drone hits, boy, does he manage to pop off into triple kill as he challenges every single member from ITB that was fighting tooth and nail to try and get those seconds on the board. It was very close for ITB in the end, but just not quite close enough. They left themselves with just that little bit too much to do. And Quadrant now find themselves going 2-1 up in the series, and they get their first win of the season on King of the Hill Solitude.
It's heartache, it's heartbreak for ITB. They put so much into that game, and they do not get rewarded for it. But they've got to be commended for the effort. They were down in the sleighs by a considerable margin, and they brought it back. They showed life. But you spoke about, Dan, you lose the one that you're most fancied on, that could be a dagger to the heart, that could be a dagger to the cause. Quadrant have toppled it there, and they've beaten them on their favorite game type.
Yeah, I think it's going to hurt them. I mean, maybe not their all-time favorite game type, but of course it will be one of their better game types purely statistically. I think the thing that hurts more is the fact that Quadrant, it's one of their worst, right? Quadrant haven't been winning that game type. Even though Solitude is definitely a strength for Quadrant across the board, King of the Hill for some reason has been an outlier in that fact. And I think with the fact that Quadrant play very fast, they like to rotate, the way they play strongholds, they pioneered the way to play strongholds back in the day. King of the Hill can be quite static at times, and Quadrant have typically struggled with those setups. It's clearly something they've been working on, but not just that, the break of setups. They take their time, they wait for ITB to have a little bit of kind of confidence in where they might be holding, and then suddenly Quadrant all post out at exactly the same time to do damage, and they were able to find a lot of success there in that King of the Hill.
It was almost a game of 2 halves then, right? We've seen Hills 1 and 2 being relatively easy, Quadrant getting the sleighs they needed, rotating where they needed to, leaving a solo player so they can rotate into yellow, getting the kills that were required. But then ITB roared back, 2-1 the score, and they managed to make it a bit more of a difficult task than perhaps it suggested it was going to be.
I think ITB struggled with finding that last player on the Quadrant roster. How many times did we see Glory or Sica get away, survive, either get good spawns for the rest of the team or take a 1v1 and win that engagement so that then off spawn the rest of the team had an advantage when they started to make a push and make a press to get towards that hill. These were the final moments, by the way. Snipedrone challenging anyone who wanted to be in that hill. And even though it was gonna be a chance, maybe if Jimbo had even won that fight, there was gonna be another player there from Quadrant. ITB threw everything at that hill, but sadly was not enough. And Snipedrone getting up, celebrating and pointing to let his ex-teammates know what's real.
Snipedrone's bandit did not discriminate, friend or foe. If you're in my crosshairs, you're being cut down. What a performance, what a triple kill from him. Though the players might have been weak, you need to be that player to make an influence, staying alive on that garbage truck, and they played that game plan expertly in that final hill. But on the horizon now, oddball streaks, Dan. I know you've got something for me.
Typically, I'd be leaning towards ITB, because again, in a setup-heavy game type, oddball streets, ITB have found success, but with how Quadrant are playing, and clearly where their practice has been with breaking setups, I think that maybe we're looking at a 3-1 here if Quadrant are able to play in that same manner and find that same success at shutting down any sort of hopes and dreams of ITB, getting set up and holding any time.
Just to remind you folks at home what's at stake. This is an elimination bracket match. If you lose, you go home. ITB have one more life. Is their balloon about to be popped? Will they be sent home with a quickness? They've got it all to do. Down the series by 1 with ambitions of pushing this one to a game 5. But Quadrant will have different ideas entirely.
In terms of bracket, the winner of this gets into top 8, and I think it's complexity on their side of the bracket as well, who are currently competing in losers bracket. And if seeds were to go the right way, that's a matchup versus complexity for top 6. And with how Quadrant have been playing so far, with how ITB have been playing so far, they might quite fancy that route to top 6 as well. So are you passing up an opportunity here for what could be a more comfortable top 6 than the other side of the bracket, where FaZe are currently waiting in that side of the elimination?
Well, we've lost a player there, so we'll have to go to the rule book and figure out what way it's going to go. Will it just be a clean reset? It was pretty early doors, so I'd have to imagine that a reset is probably on the cards.
Yeah, we'll see. The admins will, of course, sort that one out, but it's a chance for the players to also reset. We went very quickly from one map to another, and that could be a bad thing, I'd say. If you're the ITB boys and you've just lost 2 back-to-back, I quite like a break, if I'm completely honest. So this might benefit them more than Quadrant, who are going to be... Actually, we wanted to keep playing that game because we're feeling hot, we're feeling ready, but... Ultimately, Quadrant look better than ITB right now. I think that the first game was hard to split the difference, and it was one moment of magic from Jimbo that really was able to separate them in that first match.
Yeah, I think I want to make a point. You say you would love a break after losing the game.
I would. See you later.
The problem is, the issue is that when I play matchmaking with Dan, we lose a game, he goes for a break, he says he's going to make tea, but he takes absolutely hours to get back to his setup. And I know we all have a friend like that who tells you they'll be on in 15 minutes but don't arrive for an hour and a half. That is Dan, he's a premium milker. What I can say is, Dan, we are going to get that break, so any milkage that's here, ITB are going to try and milk that time as long as they can.
I love a cup of tea right now. It's always a thing that happens in North America. A cup of tea doesn't really come round as much as you would like. But yeah, there is a little bit of milk, but I will say that Quadrant, off the back of that previous game, considering they haven't won King of the Hill Solitude so far, I think that is going to be a big shift in their belief, not just of this series, but moving forward as a team. I think that the 0-3 against Shopify Rebellion would have really hurt them. The expectation for them would have been making that series competitive at the very least. And to lose 0-3, I mean, I think that says that maybe that gap yourself to the top 4 is a little bit further than maybe you once thought.
Yeah, and I think it's almost this high bar that Quadrant have set. It's almost a curse to them now, of course. You get that top 3 finish. Historically, we would have been absolutely delighted with a European team finishing top 6.
Yeah.
But how the goalposts have been moved, almost because they're a victim of their own success at times. Because they got that top 3, that the top 6 is just like, they've done it again.
I mean, 7 years ago, here in Atlanta, a weekend prior, we had 4 European teams and none of them got top 8. They all finished top 12, top 16, and now we have 2 European teams competing for a top 8 position. I don't think we realize how lucky we are that we're in this spot now where Europe's best and finest can compete on the international stage, but it's just a shame one of them has to go out at this early stage, I guess, at top 12.
Well, we're not sending anybody home right now. We still have a little squabble to take care of, and I think Oddball Street's somewhere I want to look back into, and these map records that they have. Is there anything that you see from these 2 teams that maybe sets them apart from one another, and is that something that you expect that will pay dividends here? Is there a strategy that maybe Quadrant have? Because we've talked about how in the end games they've had some playbooks that they've gone to. We spoke about You know, Sica talked about how they had an execution and an end game of a Slayer that they pulled out of the bag. And do you think there's a little bag of tricks they can go to here if they need to?
I think Quadrant probably have a deeper playbook, as it were, than ITB. But I think if ITB hit their very best in oddball, I think they can take down Quadrant. I think when you've got players like Jimbo, who is very aware of how to play the objective, how to rotate the ball, I think he's the best objective player we have out of these 8 players, personally. Sure, he might not match up slaying-wise compared to some of them, but I think if you've got someone who knows where to be moving that ball, if you do it correctly and you have the right players around you getting the job done, that can find great success. Ball movement is something that's maybe underrated, I believe, in Halo Infinite, and I think that as long as Jim can kind of direct the team of where they need to be, ITB could take us to a Game 5.
I'll tell you, it's something that's underappreciated, of course, with being able to rotate the ball, having the timing in your brain, almost having this top-down idea in your head. You're hearing call-outs and you're mapping out where players are positioned, knowing exactly when to rotate that ball from tower around by shotgun. We've seen Snakebite do it many a time, APG, Dead Zone. These players, when it comes to rotating the ball, although it might not look flashy, having that time in your head, sometimes you do have to take back and sit back and applaud and recognize that the decision that was made was absolutely perfect.
It's taking the risk. It's putting a life on the line and not caring about a death. I mean, it's something that's age-old in Halo history is, are you prepared to die? Are you worried about your statistics? Because the difference can be sometimes you jumping out, taking some shots, grabbing that ball, and even tossing it to a teammate could win you a game in the long run. That 1 second, those 2 seconds you gain from that could be what separates you from the other team.
How many times do we see an oddball game separated by 1 second? It happens all the time. Are any of these players willing to put themselves on the line for the victory? You know they want it more than anything, particularly those ITB boys who find themselves now down by a game here, and they desperately want to get us to the Slayer on recharge. But oddball street stand, that's what's up next, and that's what we have to contend with. We're underway here. Glory's going to go back tower and look for the Bulldog.
It is going to be a full reset, by the way, so no advantage for either team, and ITB have wanted this. I've heard it from ITB, I've heard it from Wonderboy. They want to have this series, they want to play against Quadrant on LAN in international competition. I want to see that now here on Oddball Streets. I want to see that passion echo through their gameplay. They've got early scoring here, but now they need to focus on the power-up for the middle.
And you just know Quadrant want to prove that ITB are a little more than an irritation, and ITB trying to make themselves more than just that. They want to be the problem. They want to be that. They, for the longest time, Dan, have had aspirations of being the team that people talk about in Europe. They want to be the Quadrant. They want to be the one that's on the lips of everybody inside Europe. They want to be the shining light, the jewel in the crown. For too long, in their opinion, has it been Quadrant?
You know full well there's an element of jealousy there, and to see what Quadrant were able to achieve, to see them reach those dizzy heights of top 3, as Sica looks to try and make it a 3rd, but doesn't quite make the triple. Very important Jimbo shut him down there, because it means that at least there's someone on the map that can compete and make Snipedrone worry about where this ball has to go. Otherwise, he could have held it comfortably in Tram for quite some time, but he had to just shift his position slightly there, which will eat away at a few seconds.
And this might be a strategy in and of itself, Dan, because we spoke about how Snipedrone's a player who stands in the hill because he likes to be static. If you give him the ball and allow him the freedom to drop the ball and shoot when he needs to, because he's that player that wants to stand still, perhaps the pace of the team benefits as a whole.
That's what I was talking about. You've got Jimbo, who is, I would say, one of the better objective players in Europe. When you look at Quadrant, if Snipedrone is your objective player, then you don't have an objective player, because he isn't an objective player. He's an anchor, he's a slayer, he's one of the best to ever do it in Europe. But you're completely right, it's a strategy that certainly can work if employed correctly. If you put him in the right spot where he can drop that ball and do damage, you can find success, but it won't be a quick round, because there'll be a lot of seconds lost whilst you're dropping that ball, whilst you're looking for kills, because a Slayer is always going to be looking for more kills as Mighty gets one and secures the camouflage.
Beautiful picture of picking up the camouflage and exactly whose hands it went into, and if it got popped into the chest, and indeed it did, into the chest of the Dutchman. Mightys has got a top tower. SLG is going to be on flowers, down to no shields, backs away, recognizing that the firepower position over towards tower is too much and too strong for him, and wisely decides to put it in reverse. Mightys is just trying to get information. He's got 2 players in his crosshairs. That stalker shot, Mighty just giving up his position, and as a result of that, he was not able to get the backpack that you know he wanted.
Tied for slays at the moment between the two teams, 15 and 15. Quick math, and now we're going to see whether TchiK can actually do some damage with the Bulldog here. In the Shroud just to try and stay alive, but the Shroud dissipates at just the wrong time when he was unable to get that damage done.
Something I want to talk about is the body language of players, and we spoke about it with Wes quite a lot, particularly last season. TchiK, whenever he dies, he throws his head back sometimes, and you can tell his frustration. And if the rest of your teammates start to feed off that, can that be a problem?
It's just French players in general, I think.
Yeah, it really is.
It's, you know, they're never happy. Even with the success, they're still throwing the head back. No, I joke. It's difficult. I mean, we've been there as players. You see your teammates getting frustrated and you really wish that instead they were making a worthy call out instead of getting that frustration. And it's difficult as a player yourself to try and get rid of that mentality from your brain and instead accept the death, move on, and give relative call outs that can help your team. Wow.
zMightys with a return to sender. Licked the stamp, applied it to the envelope, got himself a kill. 3 go down. Snipedrone's got the ball again, but he's just not able to round the corner. He gets pipped at the post. Glory's over towards PD. It might even be caution he's positioned. Yes, indeed it is. zMightys spots it out, knows exactly where he's going to be. Those two players know each other's play style all too well.
10 kills at the moment for Sica. Of course, doesn't have the assist, but he has been on cleanup crew, and he's had a great series so far. And one of the key reasons why Quadrant are currently ahead in this series. It's another camouflage, it's up, but it's another one for ITB. It looks like zMightys was trying to create something there, but all 4 went down on the side of ITB, so no camouflage secured in the end. And Quadrant will continue to score, but they just want to get that ball into a better position over towards Tram, it looks like. But this is going to be a situation where I think where Sica currently finds himself, they weren't able to get the ball over towards Tram, and it became just kind of stuck over towards Pink, and somehow ITB, off the back of an all 4 dead, have stopped any seconds being gobbled up by Quadrant.
And you can tell Sica anticipated the ball was going to make that rotation because he was trying to keep Arcade side locked down. He almost seemed bewildered when he noticed the ball had been stopped. He's like, where's this pressure coming from? And unfortunately for him, he wasn't able to get close and to be an influence on them fights. He is now there, he is over towards the L, he gets eliminated by his former teammate TchiK. Snipedrone's front base down to no shields. Snipedrone locks in a headshot and takes him away from the equation. 3 go down, Glory last man standing here over towards Cafe. It's ITB who have the ball, and it's ITB starting to pull away here with a slight lead.
I think what's important is ITB keeping this very similar in terms of slays. In fact, it's identical, 33 apiece right now. We saw what happened in CTF Empyrean, right? When it was so close with the slays throughout the entire game. It was the objective work from ITB that won them that game in the end. That one moment where they got a few kills and made it work. This could be the same scenario here in Oddball, where they're just better with the kills that they get over Quadrant in this objective fashion.
Efficiency, it's always something we talk about, we harp on about it. Double kill for WuTum. And he's rotating around looking for more targets to deal damage to. He's found a victim here, Glory down to no shields, trying to stay alive on Laundry, cannot do so. The assist medal comes through, SLG on caution, another assist comes through. WuTum's doing the damage, his teammates are getting the kills. This is what you need to see. They have an 18-second lead, and Camouflage is going to be up in 5 seconds.
It was a quiet game 1 for WuTum on CTF Empyrean, and we highlighted it, and we said that don't be too confused about that. Don't be too worried about it, because he will come back into things, and he will find success, and he will peak at some point in this series, and that seems to be here on Oddball Streets. And now, suddenly they only need 18 seconds to win this first round to ITB, and they are getting the kills onto Quadrant, but there is a camouflage. SLG has a chance to disrupt things here.
They know he has it, they're trying to spot him out. He's managed to sleep through the cracks as the sneaky Frenchman. He gets the ball carrier down. Jimbo has to get close. Jimbo's throwing down the shroud screen to try and provide some cover for himself. Sica's going to fall as well. Snipedrone's towards Cafe, just baiting that ball. SLG is there too. Jimbo's going to exchange fire. Jimbo's going to fall short. Snipedrone slides forward. They have map positioning. They have the ball, but they have a lot of time to try and chase.
Very small thing there from Jimbo. He didn't dive onto the ball. He was well aware there were players in the area, and if he had just jumped on it, it would have given them too much map presence. Instead, he added to the damage of the rest of his team. And that goes back to the objective work that I was talking about. It's more than just holding the ball, it's your play around the ball as well. But Quadrant have still been able to wrestle it back, get that control, and now they have Tram. And this is where we are going to learn how ITB break setups when it comes to ball. And if Quadrant can hold it strong, who's going to hold that ball? That's one of the biggest questions for me, as it is going to be an ITB push now. Here they come.
What's the buzzword going to be? Is it going to be clutch? Is it going to be ice? Or is it going to be desperation? We're about to find out. TchiK's in Tram. TchiK's got ball. 3 seconds required. Nobody there to stop him. Round 1 goes to ITB.
Wow, we do have a series on our hands, and that was maybe what I would have hoped and expected from ITB, not just as a response for the previous game, but with how they have played ball in the past. As a team who seems to have a little bit more objective efficiency, I think that was on display there. They made those kills count, they made those rotations count, and they had setups that just got that little extra amount of time.
First person to die is going to be TchiK. And that opens up the map. on the arcade side. Sica exploits that expertly as well, has a full rotation, and is rewarded with a ball to scoop up as well. TchiK, who was the first one to die, is the first one to spawn back up, but is now having to wait for his teammates to spawn up as well. zMightys, the last one to pop up, all 4 up now for ITB, but that has meant that SLG has been able to get an uncontested camouflage.
Camo plus Bulldog is a deadly combo as well, and he's just picking and choosing with his moment of when to pounce, and not only gets a double, but now gets the map presence over by the ball with more camouflage, and it's only TchiK, his former teammate, as the last player to go up against it. Hold on a second, somehow, some way, unable to get that kill, and you could see the double take there as he didn't get the damage that he maybe expected.
SLG thought that was a guaranteed kill. Think again, says the ITB boys. Kills are going in their favor. 2 down, make it 3. SLG in the front base. He's going to fall as well. This is an opportunity then for ITB to get the ball, get themselves set up. It's going to be 2 on the pink side. Excuse me, 2 on the pink side, 1 on the arcade side. So they have a little bit of a setup here to break.
There's so much on the line for these players, by the way. I mean, I know you've mentioned it already, but TchiK, formerly on Quadrant, Jimbo, his team with Snipedrone, because Snipedrone was previously on this roster when they were foe. You've got Sica, who of course teamed with TchiK. You've got Glory, who used to be on foe. Everyone wants to prove a point, every single player, for a different reason, whether it's justifying your pickup, justifying a transfer onto the other team, or justifying dropping said player. As WuTum helps the rest of the squad get 3 dead again for Quadrant. They have Tram once more, and they're starting to put some real time on the board here.
Camouflage popped to the zMightys' chest. Surveying the land, surveying his options. What's the execution going to be? WuTum's been forced to drop the ball, but with good reason, as he's managed to get himself a kill. GloryGGz coming down bottom middle, but he's no interest in trying to hype and help Snipedrone. Camouflage will now fall. Sica's going to help SLG rotate this ball out. WuTum, try as he might to be an influence, could not get the damage that he needed. Glory has got the ball back towards back tower. SLG there too, and now Quadrant have a standoff.
It was a heist. Get that ball, get out, and get it over towards tower instead, and force ITB to try and break you. Big kill from Sica. Again, stepping up when he needs to for the team. A lot of his kills have been very impactful for how the game is followed, and it might just be the same here, because now they have the extra player on the map as he pushes towards pink, and will secure 2 more kills for the team, which of course means more seconds on the ball.
Sica, he's Mr. Consistent. He very rarely puts a foot wrong. He very rarely makes the mistakes. He's never the one that seems to cost his team results. SLG though, over towards PD now. Locked in and caution. They're going to toss that ball out, recognizing that perhaps this push is not going to go they wanted to. TchiK soars to PD, but not before getting himself a kill. Snipedrone's going to try and back away here and get close to his team. WuTum's in trouble. WuTum falls, as does Jimbo. So they've managed to navigate that push pretty successfully.
Good shot from Snipedrone. Killing spree is Snipedrone starting to heat up as well. Maybe him recognizing that he might have to be the difference maker for Quadrant. Right now, I don't think Quadrant have been able to get that setup that they've desired so often with this oddball. ITB have done very well at keeping this scrappy, making sure there's a player to always have an angle on that ball carrier. As Jimbo now just being a nuisance for Glory as well. Again, it's being a thorn in the side, time and time again from ITB.
And it's about nullifying some of Quadrant's best players. Of course, Wes spoke about how he thinks Glory is the best player in Europe now ever since Legend has left. You look at Glory's stats, he's 13, 12 and 20. Not by any means a dire game, but if Quadrant are going to see success, typically he's the player leading the line in the slays.
Glory, typically very quick with his playstyle, will often be the leading player into an attack as well. He'll be leading the charge, but if he doesn't have that support, if he is just 1 second too fast, then he is going to end up with a lot more of those deaths. As Sica has the camouflage, and again, he can be the big impact here for Quadrant. They still have the lead, and they've just been able to level the amount of kills, 79 on both sides. Quadrant were down for a short while. ITB starting to take that slaying advantage, but now we're seeing with Quadrant getting those kills, well, a lot more ball time is coming after him.
And that's what I want to talk about as well, Dan. You talk about timing and how important it can be. If you're off by a second or two, you can go from looking like a god to you've made a foolish play. And it's very important that you know exactly what timers you're on and your team. Glory just seems to not be tuned in as it stands right now. But Jimbo's got a bulldog him. Jimbo's got himself a kill, but not before a trade comes out on the TchiK as well. So 2 go down unofficially. It was 3 dead for a moment for ITB, but they've still got the ball. They're tossing it and they're rotating it towards the fresh spawners.
The clock could definitely become a part of this game as well. Only 1 minute 40 left. 55 seconds at the moment for Quadrant. 39 for ITB, but with a few players going down, Quadrant have a chance to wrestle some more time back in their favor. Will they be able to tie this one up? Snipedrone being aggressive, listening to those call-outs, being the turret that he can so often be. He always knows when is the right time to push the Snipedrone. You talk about those seconds, you talk about the differences of being too quick, being too slow. Snipedrone is usually on the money and knows exactly when to engage into a fight.
All that experience on his side, Snipedrone. There's very little he hasn't seen in a game of Halo, I can tell you that. Very little will surprise him. 3 go down, you know, Quadrant have got so many fans back home in Europe, here as well, but you know ITB is almost a guilty pleasure for a lot of Europeans as well. You've got almost squads of people supporting either one of these teams. The cheer squad at home, no doubt, are chewing the fingernails off themselves.
It's like watching your mum and dad have an argument. It doesn't matter who wins, it's not going well for you. Someone has to lose and someone's going to be sad. There's now 55 seconds on the clock for ITB. They are starting to catch up a little bit. Jimbo gets an important kill, but there has been deaths around him, and it's another camouflage for Sica. These camos are going to start to get out of hand and could be the reason why Quadrant take a round here.
Sica, so much importance on him here. Spots out the player. Thought he'd gone front base, but he stayed on the lip instead. TchiK is forced to back away. You know he wants to get here. You know he wants to do damage to that ball carrier. He's being forced back. So much pressure from Quadrant. Players down to no shield. Snipedrone's in big trouble as well. Double kill from zMightys, and that could just open the door now.
Quadrant are doing very well at getting ball time whilst they're taking fights, though. They are taking this one to ITB. They say, you want to play it scrappy? All right, we believe we are the better slaying team. We're just going to take you in a game of Slayer and try and get that ball time along the way, and it has worked out better for them rather than going for those perfect setups, trying to take those angles and trying to stop ITB off spawn, but somehow Mighty did snag the ball, but that's an amazing grenade to shut him down with 28 seconds left.
Quadrant almost like Tony Montana. You want to play rough? Okay, I play rough. TchiK, he's got the hands on the ball, eating away at that lead. Now well within 10 seconds, make it 7. The issue is the game clock starting to play a part here, and a very big one as well. It's going to have an influence, no doubt about it, in the decision-making process of ITB. Because if they're not quickly getting to that ball, they're going to run out of time. They have got hands on, and perhaps now Quadrant are the ones who are in trouble. Perhaps the script is going to change here. TchiK is going to take the lead for ITB.
Both teams cross 100 kills, but it's ITB who have the lead with 10 seconds remaining, and I believe they are just going to watch over this one. They are going to force a Quadrant push.
ITB draw a line in the sand. If you want it, come and get it. And a Quadrant do not have the answers. We're going to a game 5.
Wonderboy points towards his head and says it's all about that mental game, staying strong after 2 back-to-back losses. They send themselves into a game 5 and say, we are not done yet. We can still make something of ourselves in this European matchup. The European dispute on international soil that you called it has still not found its resolution.
It's a big game, and it's time for Big Brain. Game 5, we're going to yet another shootout here in Atlanta. And we wouldn't want it any other way. These 2 European heavyweights proving us here now that there's very little to separate them. There's a reason why it's 29 to 28 map count, and we're going to take one more to settle this difference.
I think it's evident that ITB, as long as they can stay within a certain amount of slays against Quadrant, they can play the objective game and they can outplay their opponent in an objective mode. Yes, it didn't work out for them in King of the Hill Solitude, which could come back to bite them in the backside, especially when you consider that Slayers have been more beneficial towards Quadrant in the history against ITB. Because Quadrant, an amazing Slayer team, you look at all 4 of those players individually, you can understand why they have success in those Slayer game types against ITB. But ITB have at least got themselves to that game 5 now, and you know full well, Quadrant are shaking in their boots. Think of all the previous team changes that have happened, all that justification of Glory moving away from Na'Vi into this Quadrant roster. You've got the chance of Snipedrone having to compete against his previous teammates when he was on foe as well. He got taken by Quadrant. ITB can right all those wrongs right now and say it doesn't matter how many players you steal from us, Quadrant, we can still find the win.
Whether it was Cartel in the past, Ascend, Quadrant, they have been the bullies of Europe for such a long time. Champions in Valencia, record setters in Texas, winning Europa Halo Blackpool, and now looking to bully ITB once more. But they're standing up and they're standing strong, and you can tell by Wonderboy's response in that victory We speak about ice, we speak about it so often, and most of the times, more often than not, more often than I want to talk about, Dan, European teams, when they play against the big North American teams, they do not have the ice in those game 5s. The difference here is both European teams are in this matchup, so even if one team doesn't have the ice, one's going through.
Well, Slayer Recharge is where this series will find its conclusion. And even though Quadrant typically are the better Slayer side, when it gets to map 5, suddenly some of those statistics, they get thrown out the window. It is about who can have that ice. It is about which team can hold it together when it comes to a Slayer map and mode. I will say, if Quadrant take an early lead and start to break away from ITB, that's when I would be a little bit worried.
Taking a look at the stats then. KD, Snipedrone, 2.38. Now that looks incredibly impressive. Then you look at Glory, just as much damage than his teammate with a 4,196. Those two players are absolutely instrumental in their team's success.
Yeah, this was from the Slayer live fire a little bit earlier, which has typically been one of ITB's worst Slayers, but they haven't found that much more success on Recharge either, especially against international competition. They are 1-3 at the moment, but it's not that much better for Quadrant. They're 2-3. So both teams here are going into a Slayer Recharge where typically they haven't found that much success against the North American rosters. But when you think about Recharge, you think about the pace of it, who does it benefit more? Because ITB typically have found more success in the more static game types where they can set up a little bit, maybe bear, like excluding King of the Hill Solitude a little bit there. Whereas Quadrant, they kind of want to move at times. They want to be able to rotate together. And I wonder whether there's an opportunity here for ITB to lock down a few kills in the early game and really frustrate Quadrant, slow them down, and not allow them to play at the pace they would like to. If you can catch Glory around the corner, if Glory is that 1 second ahead that we were talking about, then suddenly you have the lead, you have an extra player, then you take advantage, then you get the pinch. If you can do that, repeat, have success, you could come out on top here if you're ITB.
No doubt about it, Dan. Starting strategies are going to be so important here, just to dictate who has the early advantages, whether it be a shock rifle or a camouflage grab. You know it's going to be important.
And sadly, both these teams have played each other so much that they will know pretty much every starting strategy that's in the playbook. So this is when the bluffs come in. This is where the double bluffs. Oh, I'm used to WuTum going for camo, for example, or I'm used to seeing WuTum fly around long haul. If you're WuTum here, or if you're Wonderboy, you say, all right, do we change things up a little bit? Do we suddenly go for a crazy push to try and catch them off guard? Because having the lead, I think, here in Slayer Recharge could be the difference maker.
I demand that all 8 players in this lobby, off the rip, fight bottom middle, 8 players in the middle of the map. Let's settle this thing like gentlemen.
Just a straight out brawl, no guns allowed, only melees are going to be the way we settle this one. I mean, they're good friends across the board. I will say that even though there's a lot of history with these players, I think Jimbo's teamed with every player on this stage at this point. They're all good friends. There's going to be some amount of bad blood from those transfers, but I think everyone on ITB, for example, accepted that Snipedrone was still making the right move over to a partnered organization, over towards a sponsor, over towards a salary in Quadrant. But there's a chance to make him rue that day that he left the team here if you are able to get the victory over them.
I think you make a point about them being friends. Whether they're friends or not, I think what is important here is both teams respect one another. And like we spoke about at the start of the series, for too long, it's been ITB looking up at Big Brother Quadrant, doing all the things in international competition, breaking them records, winning Valencia, all those accolades that have come their way, all the trophies, all the medals, all the first places and second places that you can speak of, it's all been going to Quadrant. ITB have been starving out here, and perhaps that means ITB want it more.
There was once upon a time when Jimbo was one of the best players in Europe with the highest ever placing in North America, and it was a top 6 that he was able to achieve. And this is 2 European teams currently competing for top 8, which does say how far teams have come, of course, but at the same time, Jimbo would like to replicate that success. And I think it hurt Jimbo. I remember being there when Quadrant were able to beat his record. They were able to overtake that top 6, and he was kind of saying, you know, they've been able to outdo what I was able to hold. I was the record holder, and that is always a shame to lose that kind of accolade. But now's your moment to try and make up for it, stay alive in the tournament, and see if you can go one step further.
We're about to lock into this shootout. These 2 teams could not be separated. After 4, we're going the distance here. 2 European heavyweights collide, destined to match each other at some point or another. We were robbed of this matchup all too many times. It didn't happen in Texas. It didn't happen in London. When now we get that opportunity to settle the differences. Who is the best on LAN? We've had that question for too long. ITB fancied themselves. Quadrant fancied themselves. Shields up, weapons hot. We're underway in Game 5, baby.
This is where boys become men in a Game 5 like this, and Mighty's already getting a double and gets away with the camouflage. That's outrageous. As 4 members of Quadrant 4, we spoke about the opening strategies. We spoke about how important it could be to take the lead here, and it is ITB who strike first.
You've got to be wary of your ITB. You win this series, but you might lose a player. So be careful with how you win it. Don't be too dominant.
Just do enough.
Just do enough. Just get over the edge. Make this one a 50-49. Snipedrone's in big trouble. Snipedrone's no longer a problem. Shock rifle and camouflage is now just shock rifle. Mighty's pushed up the yellow stairs.
Also, think back to that Europa Halo Blackpool tournament that you spoke of when Quadrant and Foe faced up against one another. It was Slayer Recharge as that final map, was it not? When you thought maybe Foe were going to be able to walk away with the victory. Of course, Foe previously of ITB. I wonder whether any of that memory will start to ring through the heads of these players on ITB, and they want to make up for that loss, because that main stage celebration from Quadrant back in Europe was all taunted towards those ITB players, and they'll certainly love to repay them for that.
One man I know who doesn't want to see the result go the same way as Glory. He was already on the receiving end of that Game 5 defeat, and he's hoping to turn the tides here. But ITB, so long have they been in the shadow of Quadrant, how they would love to just have their moment in the sunshine. It's 14 kills to 8, it's shock rifle in the hands of Snipedrone, but he's hitting bodies, not faces. It's enough damage for his teammates to follow up on, but if he can start to string together a few kills, maybe he can cut away at this lead.
And often we talk about players stepping up in this occasion in Game 5, but we also have to note, does anyone crumble? Does anyone succumb to the pressure here, knowing what is at stake? Not just top 8 here at this tournament, but of course, it's bragging rights in Europe. It's to be the dominant force in Europe once and for all. I know it's not going to change all of the past results, but in current form, it would be there that whoever wins this is currently the best team in Europe. And it's an 18-14 lead right now for ITB. The game is already slowed down quite considerably, considering how fast it was right off the rip for that starting strategy. Both teams just keeping each other at arm's length right now.
This is where you look to the experience on your rosters. Jimbo and TchiK, SLG, Snipedrone and Sica, they've got experience in spades, but it has got to come to fruition now. The decisions that you make are going to define what way this series shakes out.
But also allowing your newer players, some of your stronger players, to take those risks. Allow WuTum to get into a spot where he can take a fight. Try and give that shock rifle to WuTum so he can make the difference. Allow Glory to be aggressive and support him, match his speed as well, so that they can have that moment and not feel like they're just sitting back and allowing some of the more experienced players to try and get those kills. It's your time to shine here. You can be the difference maker to why one of these teams finds success.
Players like WuTum, players like Glory, that's who we think about. Do not shy away from this spotlight, own it. This is why you play Halo Infinite. This is why you put in so many hours in scrims, in competition. You want these moments to come, and you want to be the player who makes the difference. Snipedrone with the shock rifle. This game is slowed down to a crawl. ITB hold a 5-kill advantage.
Very easy in a Game 5 like this to start to feel those nerves. The hands start shaking a little bit, extra sweat on the controller or the mouse and keyboard. Just need to take that moment to breathe, and Recharge will allow for that. Even if it's during a death, just allow yourself to calm down, refocus, and instead turn your attention to what is the task at hand, as it's a good push, but doesn't quite work out, and it's still a 6-kill lead for ITB. If they can keep Quadrant just 5 kills away for the majority of this game, they'll really put themselves in a fantastic spot for the end.
And you want to look at the likes of SLG, currently with 9 deaths, Glory with 8. They've got to slow things down here, playing a little bit too fast. We spoke about timing all through the series. They are a little bit off here, maybe a little bit desperate, a little bit nervy, because ITB are in the ascendancy here, and they're maybe perhaps smelling defeat and what that might mean for them, with WuTum getting a headshot onto Snipedrone.
Well, we said we wanted to see WuTum with the shock rifle. Well, here's your moment. The best placing mouse and keyboard player ever in the history of Halo has a chance to try and make himself one of the best European players in Halo, as well as he does get the trade and keeps this as an 8-kill gap. Now, one thing we have to focus on is Quadrant and the pace of play. Are they matching one another? You mentioned it, Glory likes to play fast, and I mentioned it, Snipedrone likes to play slow. They're the two players who are struggling right now, and it's maybe just a little bit of a mismatch. They need to be playing together at the same speed. Either someone slows down or someone speeds up. Otherwise, ITB will keep taking advantage of you.
And the issue is, if you're Quadrant, you cannot really afford to play slow. You're the one that's down in the game. You're the one that has to make the changes, make the chances, create some openings for yourself. WuTum already got himself a killing spree. Questions at the start of the series. Does Jimbo still have it? Has he got the slaying power? He's the one leading the lobby, or leading his team right now, currently with 11, 5, and 8.
We don't talk about it that often, but mentality for players is very difficult in this kind of scenario. Are you a player who is thinking, oh God, am I going to lose to an ex-teammate? Oh God, am I going to be the reason why? Or are you one of those players saying, I'm going to be the reason why we win this game, why we come back here? I don't care that we're 7 kills down. I still believe in this roster. But the further we get into this game, the closer we get to 40 kills, ITB are edging closer and closer to a victory here.
The issue is ITB, they've got scars, they've got wounds that do not want to be reopened here. They've been on the receiving end of defeat to this team far too many times. But have they now been able to piece together the roster that they need, the top of the European Kings, the European Giants? They're already 6 kills to the good, they only need 10. They're playing this one perfectly, but Glory has got the camouflage.
Camouflage is big, but you're still 7 kills down, and ITB only 9 away from taking this series, getting into the top 8, and taking that crown away from Quadrant. But Glory does get a big stick! You have to take out the camouflage, and TchiK proving his worth in that moment.
TchiK almost taking down Snipedrone as well. Jimbo tries to go for the stick. It's a 6-kill game. ITB have got to be careful here. There's no doubt about it. You know, Wonder Boy is in their ears telling them to slow this down. They can play it at their pace. A Quadrant have got to come to them.
Set those traps, wait for one of those Quadrant members to fly around that corner, and then just challenge them 2 versus 1. And then use that momentum to start pushing, to start pinching, and get those kills that get you closer to 50. You don't want to allow Quadrant back into this game, because that's when the nerves start to really come into play. Keep them at arm's length. 6 kill difference now, and TchiK has the shock rifle, and we know what he can do with a weapon like this.
You know hearts are beating through chests right now.
My heart's beating through my chest.
TchiK's got the shock rifle, trying to put some shocks through the chest of SLG. He does so. WuTum's there to get the finishing touches to the kill. Snipedrone's top tower. Snipedrone almost lost his face as well. ITB needs 6, and Quadrant are 6 away from ITB. Snipedrone wins the fight, but WuTum gets one elsewhere. Quadrant cannot trade out anymore.
It has been so many events of so close but so far for ITB. 3-way ties in pool play, losing out in matches in bracket play that they believe they should have won. Excuse after excuse, but now is their time to prove why they believed they were the better team, why they could take down a squad like Quadrant, and they only need 4 more kills to do so. They are so close they can almost taste the success here.
What's the play call? Do they have the information that Quadrant are so far away towards blue? Quadrant are going to have to try and play this one slow. Slowly chip away at that lead, because they cannot afford to trade, and they've been doing it so far. Sica's soared in, but he's all alone, isolated in bottom elevator. WuTum desperately wants to get this kill, but WuTum falls, now within 3 kills.
I'm worried. Is history going to repeat itself with a comeback here for Quadrant, or can ITB get those final kills to try and close this one out? You just need 2, but it is a camouflage. And you said Glory has responsibility. Wes said Glory, one of the best players in Europe right now. Here's your chance to prove it.
The weight of expectation on his shoulders, camouflage in his chest, flanking down long haul. TchiK's in trouble. TchiK gets taken care of. WuTum turns and turns to dust, straight towards pipes and to the cover of his teammate Jimbo. 2 kills is all that separates us, and Glory's getting aggressive.
We mentioned speed. You have to join Glory here. You have to be right by his side. Someone has to partner him. Well, Glory says, if you won't be with me, I'll come and join you.
Oh.
He goes into his death. 49-47. But there it is!
SLG falls, as do Quadrant. ITB topple the European champions.
The keyboard is raised aloft once more as the best ever mouse and keyboard player in the history of Halo does it yet again. And it's against European competition. For so long have ITB been in the shadows of Quadrant, but finally they break out of the darkness and they send Quadrant home.
It's been a long time since those Quadrant boys have been playing against ITB, have had to remain in their chairs after a series. It was only a matter of time. You know how chuffed those boys are to finally claim the scalp of Quadrant. What a series, what a performance by ITB.
What a moment for Into the Breach for Jimbo as well. I mean, so many times Jimbo has been on the receiving end, as you mentioned, and we've watched Jimbo's career for the last 10 years or however long it's been now.
40 years.
I mean, I think, yeah, it's been that long. 7 years ago in Atlanta, he was in top 12 as he was trying to compete to get a little bit further. Then we saw him progress when he gets into top 6 and becomes one of the highest placing Europeans. But since then, has always been in the shadows, has not been able to escape that darkness, but finally they do. And it's going to be a very difficult pill to swallow for Quadrant. A top 12 finish is not what they would expect and not what they would set themselves as a standard. We've seen them in the top 6 over and over again. They've had that seed, they worked so hard for that seed, and now ITB rip it right away from them.
And if this was a TV series, Dan, or a movie, they've been made to wait a very long time for this script to finally turn in their favor. This is the moment that they can take, this is the one that they can seize. An incredible performance from them, and I cannot wait to listen to an interview with one of the ITB boys. Blaze has got one, take it away.